Last week we began a new message series called More or Less, and we're coming at it from the perspective that all of us would like for our lives to improve in some way. I don't know anyone who's looking for their life to get worse, right? I mean, does anybody just wake up and go, oh, I just wish things could just get a little bad, a little more worse than they were yesterday, right? Nobody wants that. And when you start to narrow down all the categories of stuff that's in our lives, we find that pretty much everybody either wants a little bit more of something or a little less of something. We started off last Sunday talking about less worry, a topic that's very applicable to me this period in my life right now. Worry is something that touches everybody because we're really good at it. We know how to worry really well, don't we? This week we're going to talk about money. More money, because believe it or not, after countless hours of research, after scouring all the material that is available, I have been able to determine exactly how much more money every person in this room needs. A little bit more. Right? We all need just a little bit more. No matter how much you make, whether it's $30,000 a year, or $50,000 a year, or $150,000 a year, if I just had a little bit more, my life would work a whole lot better. So this morning we're going to be in Luke chapter 12. If you want to grab your Bibles, open up there with me if you would. Luke chapter 12. And in this chapter, Jesus is going to give us a warning. Then he's going to share a life principle with us. And then he's going to tell us a story. Now when it comes to money, money represents value. Right? By itself, this is really neutral. But it's not neutral in how it impacts our lives. It's a motive for us. It hooks us a lot in a lot of different ways, on a lot of different levels. It kind of catches us at some points. And so this money here just represents value. It's just a piece of paper, and yet this paper has been assigned value by our government and by us. And so what we do is we use this, don't we? We use this to get the things that we care about, the things that we value. It's not that this piece of paper is really the big deal. It's what it represents for us. It's what connects with us that allows us to do anything with it, right? For example, we value having a roof over our heads. And so this money will help me pay my rent or make a mortgage payment. We value transportation, so this will help me buy some gas or help me to get a vehicle to get around in. We value eating, some of us more than others, so this helps me to purchase food. We value entertainment, TV, movies, Netflix, sports stuff, and so this is going to help me get those things. This has some value assigned to it, and all of us need more of this to get the things that we care about. Well, Jesus has some stuff to say about this money issue. In fact, at the end of his discourse on money here in chapter 12, he says at the very end, in Luke 12, verse 34, he says this, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." Now, I'm guessing that we're not all sitting around an old wooden chest full of gold coins and silver coins. I see that word treasure and I immediately picture this giant wood full of gold and silver and jewels and all these things, right? And that's my treasure, right? And then maybe that's not what you think of when you see the word treasure, but we could just as easily here use the word money instead. And so Jesus is saying, where your money is, there is your heart also. The movement of money signifies the movement of our heart. Where your money is going, that's where your heart is going. Notice Jesus didn't say, hey, where your heart is, that's where your money's going to go. He's saying, follow the money. Follow the money. You want to know what you care about? You want to know what matters most in you, to you in life? You want to know what your heart really says about who you are at your core? You want to know these things? Track the money. Follow the money. If you were to look at where you spent the money, your money specifically, in the last 30 days, look at your credit card statements. Look at your checking account. Consider what you spent your cash on. In the last 30 days, what does your spending habit say about what you care about the most? If we look at our money, our spending, how we treat this, What does it say about where we are? You know, there's an old Chinese proverb that says that if we keep heading in the same direction, we're likely to get where we're headed. It's very true, right? And if you look at your life right now, the path that you're on, the track that you're headed down, if you keep going down the path that you're on right now today, is that where you want to end up? Is that how you want to be defined at the end of your days? Follow your money, and you'll know what you care about most. Well, it's no surprise that money actually speaks to us, and here's what money says to you. Here's what money says to me. It says that if you have me, if you've got me, then you've got what you need. If you have me, your life will be happy. If you have me, your life will be secure and content. Your future will be solid. If you've got me, you will have life. Money is a big deal issue. It's a motive for us. We get anxious around it. We don't necessarily want to talk about it. Money creates a lot of stuff in our lives that just kind of pushes up toward the surface. So it's also no surprise that Jesus spoke a lot about money and stuff. And here's how this particular lesson plays out. Jesus has been teaching a bunch of folks that they've all kind of gathered around. So there's a crowd that's kind of met here, and they're surrounding Jesus, and he's teaching them, he's loving on them, and he is helping them grow in many areas of their life. And in Luke 12:13, someone in the crowd says to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Now, it was common in first century Palestine for a rabbi to settle legal disputes and moral disputes. People would have no reservations about stopping them on a street corner, catching them in a restaurant somewhere, and asking for their opinion on a particular matter. So this guy grabs Jesus right in the middle of his lesson. He says, "Hey, Jesus, my brother, he's cheated me out of my inheritance." And so more than likely, this would have been the younger brother who's talking to Jesus, because the older brother would have been the one who was legally responsible to handle the estate or the inheritance. And so this younger brother, he wants what is rightfully his. And Jesus promptly responds, says, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" And it's kind of interesting here that Jesus doesn't actually get involved in the dispute. And here's what this young guy was saying. When he interrupts Jesus, he says, tell him to split the inheritance with me. This is really what the young guy is saying. He's saying, "Jesus, look, I need that money. That money, it's rightfully mine. Half that should belong to me. That money, it's going to help me. That money, it'll fix my life, Jesus. That money is a part of my future. It belongs to me. I need that money." And so Jesus, in response to this, gives this warning. Listen to his warning. Verse 15. "Watch out," Jesus says. "Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." Watch out, Jesus says. It's a very strong warning that he's giving here. He's saying, pay attention to the stuff that's going on in your life and be on guard against all kinds of greed. It's not talking about just this one particular kind of greed that has to relate to the inheritance, although that does tend to come out. As soon as a family dies, watch brothers and sisters and family members that have gotten along for years. As soon as the patriarchs are dead, boom, here they come, and now the war starts, right? That's just one area of greed. But Jesus says, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Greed is a dangerous thing, and it shows up in a lot of different ways. It is insidious. It seeps in. It creeps in. It's kind of like the fog that slips in and gets through the cracks and works its way into spots that we don't notice. And that's what happens with money. Now, I'm just going to take a stab at this, and I'm just going to make a proclamation at the same time. When we hear this, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. I'm guessing your tendency, as is mine, is just kind of pass right over that. Because I'm just going to tell you folks, I'm not greedy. And you know what? You're not either. I know that. I'm not greedy. You're not greedy. We all know some greedy people, but I'm not one of them. We all know, the Bertie Madoffs of the world. You remember that scandal? The guy who defrauded his clients of almost $65 billion in the largest Ponzi scheme in history? That dude was greedy. That's easy to see. Anybody can see that. Me? Not so much. I just need a little bit more to make my life work. I'm not greedy. Watch out, Jesus says. Be on guard. Pay attention to the dashboard of your life, because when some of those lights start to blink, you may be headed in a direction that's going to wreck the car and wreck your life. So let's just consider for a minute or two some of the warning lights about greed. What are they? Well, here's one. You desire to have something that someone else has. You see what they drive. You know where they work, what kind of vacations they're able to take. You watch how they live, and you just want to have what they have. Actually, my life, your life, our lives would be a whole lot easier if my friends and neighbors and coworkers would quit buying such nice stuff, right? Because then I wouldn't have to try to keep up with them all the time. We want what somebody else has, and if we start desiring what someone else has, it starts to occupy our minds a little bit more. It starts taking some of that thinking time. It might be that we're headed down a path that we don't want to go if that starts to show itself more and more and more. Well, I just need a little more to be okay. If I could just have a nice house like Wendell has, well then my life would be a whole lot better, right? If I could drive a car like Steve, boy, I'd love to have a truck. Man, if I could have a truck like Stephen has, I'd be set. I don't need, and maybe I don't even necessarily need one as big as his. Maybe just a little, because I don't need a big one. I just need a small one. Just a little bit more. Because I'm not greedy. I don't need to win the lottery or anything. I wouldn't be upset if I did, but I don't need to. I just need a little bit more. Here's another warning. We just can't wait to get what we want. We want what we want, and we want it right now, don't we? The reason the average household credit card debt in the United States is approaching $16,000 is because we've been conditioned that if you want it, don't wait, get it now. Get it here, get it now. The reason that we have, on average, 11 credit and debit cards in our household. The reason for that is because we want the ability to get what we want now. We don't have to wait. We don't have to save. We don't have to choose between something or another thing. We can get it all, and we can have it right now, because there is always someone who's willing to loan you the money so that we can have it. Here's another warning light. If, for some reason, we are not generous, we ignore people or their issues that we can afford to help with, and we choose not to. If we're not giving in some way, if we're not generous in some way, it's more than likely a sign that we are greedy. If we're experiencing conflict or turbulence in our life and in our relationships, more often than not, that conflict or turbulence is around money stuff. The number one reason people in the United States divorce: financial issues. The number one conflict in relationships, whether they're friendships or marriages or family, it's around money stuff. Number one stress we have in life is around our income. Number one worry we have in life is whether or not we have enough money to take care of the things that we want or we need. Money is a big deal issue. Wages are up, unemployment is down, it's the lowest it's been in a long, long time, and yet 1/3 of us, statistically 1/3 of everyone in this room, is struggling to make it from week to week. We are burdened financially. Here's what Solomon said on the subject, Ecclesiastes 5:10. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. Jesus says, watch out. Be on guard against all kinds of greed, because it shows up in a lot of ways in our lives. Pay attention. Look. Examine your life, he says. And then he gives a life principle, kind of like the bumper sticker principle that you might want to put on the back of your car. He says, your life isn't your stuff. Your life isn't your stuff. Watch out. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Was talking with Steve yesterday on the phone. He was telling me about somebody who's all about, the opportunity. Make overtime, double time, triple time, work as many hours as you can, do whatever you can, make as much cash as you can. And it was funny because I immediately said, Steve, life does not consist of the abundance of our possessions, right? And he started laughing. He says, you're right, I keep telling him that. The message puts it like this: life is not defined by what you have, even when you have a lot. Well, that's not how you and I keep score today. See, we measure our value, we measure our worth based on our stuff. What we wear, where we live, the kind of vehicle we drive. We look around, we measure where we stand in society based on our level of income or our ability to have resources. Most of us measure our lives by the accumulation of our stuff. You've heard it. Whoever dies with the most toys wins. I'm not sure they're going to like what they've won behind door number 2. Most of us measure our lives by the accumulation of our stuff. There are some people who will put themselves into poverty because of this continual chasing after money and stuff, because that's their identity, it's their value, it's all they've got. What is it that you value? What is it that you really care about? Let me toss another couple questions your way to kind of help you answer that main question. What is it that you value? Think about this. What would you hate to lose right now? If I were to ask you to just list one thing, or maybe 2 or 3 things that you would hate most to lose, what would they be? Let me give you a clue. If stuff is before people, then you might have an issue. What is it that gets your best effort right now? What are you putting your time and your energy into these days? What is it that you're thinking about, strategizing about? The last thing that you think about before you go to bed, the first thing you think of when you wake up. It's usually what you value the most. What do you worry about or stress over the most? What gets the most of your available resources? It's that old principle. If you give me your checkbook and your calendar, I can tell you what you care most about. Not what you convince the people around you that you care about. Not some slogan that you stuck up on the refrigerator. Not what your family thinks that you care about. I can tell you that what you spend your money on and where you spend your time are the things that you value the most. And it doesn't take long when you open those up and you start to scan through and you see and you sort out what it is that you value. Jesus says, follow the money. Follow the resources, and you'll know exactly where your heart is. So Jesus gives us a warning. Watch out. He gives us a life principle. Hey, your life is more than the abundance of your possessions. And then he tells us a story. And here's the cool thing. Whenever Jesus tells a story, he almost always tells a story as if he's picked up a glass. You ever done this in a restaurant? You pick up a glass, you hold it up into the light, and you just kind of turn it back and forth a little bit, just to see it from a different perspective, just to get a different angle on it. Maybe you thought something was in there, you're not sure if you're going to send it back, or, did they give me a dirty glass? So you're holding it up, you're twisting it, you're turning it around, you're looking at it from a whole new perspective, seeing it just a little differently. Well, that's kind of what Jesus is doing here in this story that he's getting ready to tell. He holds up this glass, so to speak, and he just kind of starts to talk about it from a completely different angle. Verse 16, he told him this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I don't have any place to store all these crops. He said, hey, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns. I'll build bigger ones. And there I'll store all my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, hey, you've got plenty of grain, and it's stored up there for many years. Take it easy. Sit back, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, you fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who's going to get what you prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. This is a very simple story. It doesn't take long to tell. Jesus tells a story. He's talking to an agrarian society, basically a bunch of farmers. And they would have understood, very simple story, that a successful farmer had done well. Had a bumper crop this year. Everything went well. He's got more crops. He's been building bigger bigger barns, and Jesus says, you know what, this guy is a fool. This guy absolutely blew it. Over the last 2 years, my eyes have gotten increasingly bad to the point that I've got cheaters stashed just about everywhere you can imagine. I used to kind of laugh at Bill when we'd be backpacking because he was always looking for his cheaters. You know, anytime we need to do something, and it caught up to me, Bill. I keep a pair of cheaters in my office at home. I keep a pair at work. There's usually a pair laying beside my bed. I got another pair in my backpack. I even went and bought a pair and stuck them at Margaret's house. So when she had me a piece of mail, I could read it. If it's close, and Dr. Coleman, he warned me this was going to happen, and I thought, my eyes are good. This is not going to happen. But well, he was right, and it came with a vengeance. And so if it's closer than arm's reach, and it's smaller than a 12-point font, it's a blur. I can't tell you what it says. I do not see well, basically from here to here. Right? I got to get it all the way out to here before I can really get a hold of what it is. I have an eye problem. The farmer in this story, he's got an eye problem as well. 12 times the words I, me, my, mine show up. He says, look at what I've done. Look what I've got. Hey, this is what I need. This is what I'm going to do for me. This is how I'm going to take care of myself. This guy had gone from doing well to affluence to luxury. And now he just wants to hoard it all up for himself so that he can sit back and relax because I've got everything I need to be secure. Unfortunately, the guy had zero exit strategy in place. And so Jesus calls this guy a fool. Now I want you to pay particular attention to the details in this story. And I want you to notice what Jesus doesn't say in this parable. Nowhere in this parable do you find that Jesus condemns this man for being a successful farmer. He makes no allusion to the fact that this guy somehow got what he got because he was immoral, unethical, or illegal. He never says that the farmer was paying his workers a substandard wage. He wasn't giving himself a bigger bonus while cutting out his managers in the process. He wasn't bullying anyone like that. In fact, there's nothing in here that Jesus says this guy did wrong, except for the fact that he was hoarding everything for himself. That was the problem. He was doing it for himself. He was keeping it for himself. He didn't share what he had got. He wasn't generous with what he had earned. He didn't use what he'd been wise and smart and strategic about to help others. Jesus isn't condemning the guy's ability to grow his wealth or even to have a lot. What he's condemning is how this guy measured his life based on what he had, and there was zero generosity in meeting the needs of others or seeing beyond himself. From every way that we would look at it, from every way that the world would look at it, we would say, hey, this dude, he was a successful man. At least in the way that the world measures success today. Somebody put together a humorous ladder to success. The ladder up and the ladder down. It goes like this. At age 4, success is not wetting your pants. At age 12, success is having friends. At age 16, success is having a driver's license. At age 20, success is having a job. At age 35, success is having money. At age 50, success is still having money. At age 60, success is having a job. At age 70, success is still having your driver's license. At age 75, success is still having friends. And at age 80, success is not wetting your pants. Right? And there we go. It just kind of circles right back around, right? It just comes around. Here's what Jesus is saying. Very similar to the way theologians lately said it. If you possess something you cannot give up, you don't possess it. It possesses you. And I'll be honest, I've been possessed by some of my possessions. That need for more, that desire to have. And so Jesus wants us to shift our thinking. That's why he tells us this story. Because here's what he's saying. if there is no God, if there is nothing after all of this, if all you and I do is just make a few laps around the sun and then it's over, then our pursuit of stuff, our pursuit of money, it's all legit. Your desire to have more, to do what you want, to get as much as you can, it's a legitimate pursuit. In fact, the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 says, and if there's no resurrection of the dead, then Christ has not been raised. And if Christ hasn't been raised, then your faith is useless. What's the point? Live any way you want. You're guilty in your sins. In other words, if the dead are not raised, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. But, and this is a really big but, if this isn't all there is, if God is there, and God is inviting us into His story, if in fact Jesus did redeem, He did restore, He did rescue us, if that is true, then there is a lot more to your life than just the piling up of your stuff. Maybe that's why Paul wrote to Timothy and said this, those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money, he didn't say money, he said our love, our greed, our pursuit, our passion for money is a root of all kinds of evil or trouble in our lives. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. That temptation is strong. You and I know people, family, friends, maybe even ourselves, who crave some money, who crave the stuff. Jesus goes on in the passage here in Luke 12 and he talks about being generous. He tells us how where our money is, that's where our heart is going to be also. Do you want to know where you are with God right now? Do you want to know where you are with others? Do you want to know where you are and how you measure yourself? Just follow the money. And giving, being generous, seeing beyond ourselves is one of the antidotes to greed. And I can tell you that, and I know that, because I've experienced that in my own life. When I've learned to be more generous, when I've given more, it's helped me to deal with that insidious monster that gets a lock on my heart. You know, a couple of years ago, I think it was 2016, we challenged you to give sacrificially. And we saw the numbers on the board, they just started climbing. Right? People were doing that. We were giving generously, sacrificially. Cheryl and I, we changed the way we were tithing. We were giving God first fruits. Started working on my taxes yesterday. I was panicked. I went to bed in a panic. I'm going to owe $3,000. This can't be right. I've never owed the government money. This morning I went back through and I started figuring out, and I added up all of the contributions to Station Camp. And you know what I found out? God has incredibly blessed us. And Cheryl and I have had the opportunity to give more back to Station Camp Christian Church than we've done ever in the 29 years that we have been here. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but I'm going to tell you that we were blessed. We were blessed. God met the need. And as we begin to give generously and sacrificially, God makes all things work. I can't tell you how many times I've said to Cheryl, we got some big bill sitting out there somewhere. Well, why? Because it seems like we've got more money in our checkbook than it seems right. It's like, where is it coming from? I can't explain it. I don't know. But I can tell you what's happened. The more generous we become, the more we push greed away. When Jesus says, watch out, be on your guard, you gotta look. Listen, see this money? It represents something for us. Now, I was going to do this with a $20 bill, but the last time I tried to make a point in a message with money, it was my daughter's wedding, and of course Frazier was involved, and Frazier wouldn't give it back. So I'm going to do this with a $10 bill. Anybody want a $10 bill? His hand is shot up. All right, Hunter, come on up here. Come on up here. Come on. All right. You want this money? Well, you can't have this yet. But you sure you want it? I think you he'd like to have $10. I'm sure there's other folks who like to have $10. I'd like to have $10. But this $10, it represents something. It represents some value. You know, there's something to it. You sure you want it? You still want it? Sure. Still want it? Oh, he doesn't want it? He doesn't want it? Anybody else want it? I might have stepped in some dog food, but want it now? No. My grandson's got croup, and I was with him last night. You want it now? Are you sure? He doesn't want it? Anybody else want it? All right. Now, here's the thing. All right. No matter what we do to that, right? Spit on it, stomp on it, chew it up, grind it up, as long as it's still somewhat intact, there's still value to that. There's still something behind it. It still represents something. No matter what I do, there's still $10 worth of value. And Dad can now take that down and buy a Happy Meal, because that's about all I buy $10, right? So he can get that and here's what Jesus was saying in this story, actually. There are a whole bunch of us who've been beat up. Some of us at our own hands, some of us at the hands of others. Folks have been crumpled and crunched, dented, bruised, armpitted, stomped on, chewed up, spit out. And we find ourselves believing this lie of society that says that unless we get something outside of ourselves, it'll be the only way to show significance or value. That's what society wants us to think. That unless somehow we get enough of what everybody else thinks that matters, then we won't matter. And the truth is, we've all messed up. We've messed up our lives in so many ways. When we walk in this room this morning, we are a collective mess. We're busted, we're broken, we're dented and bruised. And yet God says to you, God says to me, I value you. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? Your life is more than your stuff. I care about you. I want to redeem you, restore you, rescue you. For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever chooses Him doesn't perish. They get eternal life. So I don't need more money. I need more ability to see that no matter how badly I've messed up my life, there is a God who loves me, who values me, who treasures me, and I am in His heart. See, follow the value. What did God do? His precious, valuable Son, He put on a cross at Calvary to pay the debt that you and I owe. God put His treasure where His heart was, didn't He? We saw that. We see that. You are where His heart is. And He proved that by sending Jesus for you and for me. Let's pray. God, thank you. Thank you for grace and mercy. Thank you for valuing us. Thank you, God, we know that it is not inherently because of anything that we have done, but simply because of the abundance of your love and grace for us. Lord, I know that we've talked about money this morning, and I know, Father, that if statistics hold true, there's some people here this morning who are struggling, who are wondering, they don't know how things are going to happen. But God, I pray that regardless of the amount of our income, that we would have a generous heart and a generous spirit, to give willingly, freely, as you have given. And Lord, we know that that gift was at a great cost, that our giving can come sacrificially. Thank you for how you blessed us. Thank you for how you've moved and worked and blessed this congregation. And I pray that you would help us as the body of Christ to reach out into this community, to reach out into the surrounding area, to reach out into the world, and to let the world know that Jesus is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, that salvation is only in Him, that He is life. Not our possessions, not the abundance that we try to collect. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And I just pray that you would let that be so real to us today. Thank you for all you do, for who you are. In Jesus' name.